One of the most frustrating things for me when I'm watching football games is the over-talk of certain positions and the under-talk of other positions. If you've watched any of my videos, you will know that there are certain positions that I hold in a very high value compared to other positions. I always say it doesn't mean I don't think other positions are important, but in order to get the train moving, you have to have certain things to work right, and then that impacts other things. We always say the trenches win football games, no matter if it's NFL, pro, high school, whatever. We always say battle of the trenches. Whoever wins the trenches usually wins the game. That is something we always say. That's something we always talk about. But the truth of the matter is we don't talk about the trenches nearly as much as we talk about the jersey sellers or the money makers. I always liken it to building a house. When you build a house, we usually spend more time designing the inside of the house, picking out the interior, picking out the floors, picking out all of those things, because that is where the money really goes. So we think where it really goes is the foundation of the house, building the concrete of the house, putting the roof on of the house. So for me, when I equate that to football, I can say the offensive line is basically like the foundation and the defensive line is basically the roof of the house. Either way, you can have the most gorgeous house ever, but if you don't have a foundation and you don't have a roof, what do you have? My favorite thing to do, though, on this channel is to combat those norms and to talk about things in a way that I don't think we think about, because we've actually been conditioned to look at the big plays. We've been conditioned to watch the receivers with great hands. We've been conditioned to watch the quarterback make great throws. We've been conditioned to watch running backs spin move, jump over people, tight ends run through people. Like, reality is, without your offensive line doing what they're supposed to do, and without your defensive line doing what they're supposed to do, nothing else ever matters, because if those two things on a team don't do their jobs, it shows. If we go back to the 2025 season and you think about the big plays you saw on offense, most times, in order for a big play to work on offense, the offensive line has to be doing their job. If the offensive line is not doing their job, it is very hard for you to have big plays. But yet, when big plays happen, we rarely ever say, wow, the offensive line really held for that. We usually just applaud the quarterback for the throw or the receiver for the catch. And that is my biggest issue. So I am going to break some of these norms, and I'm going to talk about some positions that are actually very dependent on the offensive line and the defensive line doing their job. Hi, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and turn on those notification bells. And if you're filling up to it, don't forget to leave me a comment in the comment section below. The quarterback is the most discussed position in football. Most teams, their quarterback is always being talked about because that is usually the person that everybody knows. Most people can name the quarterback for every single football team. Most people cannot name the center on a football team, the left tackle on a football team, any of the guards on the football team. That is just how it is. However, the quarterback is only going to be as good as their offensive line most times. Quarterback is the most dependent position in football. They usually get the blame when they lose, and they usually get applauded when they win, unless the defense goes off or something crazy happens. But the reality is the quarterback position is one component on a total offense, and it is one component on a team full of players. But we always say, oh my gosh, they won the game. This quarterback is not very good because this quarterback can't win games. That is not how this works. The weapons that the quarterback has, the offensive line that the quarterback has, the way that they block for the quarterback, all of those things makes the quarterback position extremely dependent. The other thing is too, is the quarterback has to depend on their receivers to catch the ball. Case in point, last year, a lot of people thought Arch Manning was playing absolutely horrendous because his receivers couldn't catch the ball. It is not Arch Manning's fault that his receivers can't catch the ball when it touches both of their hands, but yet he's going to get the blame for that, and it shows up on his stats. Quarterbacks get so much heat for everything. Quarterbacks get so much attention for everything. And when you give one position that much attention, it impacts the way that you see the rest of the team. And that is a problem. Quarterback stats are quarterback stats alone. But for some reason, we equate quarterback stats with quarterback wins. Those two things don't always go together. And that is because playing quarterback is a dependent position. The second position that we over talk about, that is another jersey seller, are wide receivers. Wide receivers get all of the glory. Wide receivers get all of the money. Wide receivers are the flash guys. Wide receivers are the playmakers. Wide receivers are the guys. That's all fine and dandy. But without a good offensive line, that receiver is lucky if he's able to do something. I would say the example everybody always uses Joe Burrow. Well, Jamar Chase is ever able to be good and Joe Burrow was good, but his offensive line was bad. Okay, if we're going to use Joe Burrow, okay, cool. But I always say, take out the very worst of everything and take out the very best of everything and give me everything in the middle. The bigger point I'm making here is without an offensive line, the receiver is only going to be able to do so much. So in essence, the wide receivers are so dependent on every single thing on the offense making sense and doing their job. And then obviously when they actually get the ball, they have to catch the ball and they have to make the play. But before the ball can get to them, it has to go through a multitude of different things and a multitude of things have to be right. And therefore, whenever you have a great receiver, what we really should be talking about is the amount of time that receiver had to get open thanks to that offensive line. Because without that offensive line doing what they need to do, the receiving play wouldn't work. There are so many times in football, we spend so much time talking about the quarterbacks. We spend so much time talking about the receiver and the throw and the pocket and the mechanics and their ability to move and all these different things. Without that offensive line, that quarterback doesn't do much of anything great and that receiver doesn't even have time to do anything great. And that's just how it goes. We can all think about plays last season where the offensive line play was iffy at best, or maybe let's just say the offensive line play was great, but then the quarterback play wasn't very good. So it doesn't really matter what receivers you have if the offensive line is going to do what they're going to do and then the quarterback is going to do what they're going to do. So again, I will say, playing wide receiver is a very dependent position. I don't know why we over talk about it. I don't know why we overinflate it, but at this point, it just kind of is what it is. My third and final position, that is a dependent position in football, are going to be corners because obviously, if your pass rush is able to get there, you are naturally going to be a better corner. If you are playing in front of a front seven that is able to disrupt some things, your position is going to be easier. No corner can cover forever. However, if your defensive line is not able to get pressure and that quarterback has time and you have to cover, you have a problem. And so playing cornerback is extremely dependent. And I get it. Playing cornerback is the hardest position to play in football. I understand it. But if all we talked about and all you heard in the media was how hard it is to play cornerback and how it's tough and how it's this and how it's that, and then you look at the way the money is allocated, of course you would think that. Corners are extremely dependent because they are paying attention and their position and what they're going to do is going to depend on how the guys in front of them are playing. And that's just what it is. However, whenever you start listening to conversations and when you listen to what people pay attention to, and because somebody make a big play, somebody got burnt, because this happened, something like this happened. The problem is we never really look back at the trenches. What happened in the trenches? Why did the quarterback have that much time to throw to the receiver? How did the receiver have time to do a double move? Well, it's because the defensive line wasn't getting any pressure on the quarterback and the quarterback had time. And because the quarterback had time, now the corner looks off and looks all out of sorts. And that is what happens in football. However, for some reason, we overtalk the quarterbacks. We overtalk the receivers. We overtalk the corners. We all say, though, that it's about the trenches and the trenches is going to win you games and the trenches is going to win you championships and all these different things. But when it comes to breaking down specific things and what happened and why certain things were able to happen, we never go back to the foundation. If your defensive line is able to get pressure on the quarterback, your secondary is going to look good because that defensive line is going to make that secondary look better. If your offensive line is able to give your quarterback some time, the hope is the quarterback is going to be better. And if the quarterback is going to be better, his job is to deliver a good ball to the wide receiver. But without that offensive line, without that quarterback, that wide receiver is going to struggle. All of this is working together. This is not to say that one position is more important than the other. This is not to say that all of these positions don't need each other. It's just to call out that sometimes the way that we talk about football, we're forgetting about the basic fundamentals of what makes teams good. We're always focused on, do we get a wide receiver? Who are our wide receivers? Who are our running backs? Who are our corners? Who are this? And sometimes the best answer to figure out if a team is going to be good, if a team is going to be solid, it is going to be what is happening on that offensive line and what is happening on that defensive line. Because if that is not good, we are going to have some problems. Now, If we could only talk more about the offensive line and the defensive line, it would help people actually be able to evaluate offensive linemen better. It would help people be able to evaluate the technique the offensive linemen have to do, how they're working together, what pass protection actually looks like, how they're communicating, how they all have to work together as a complete unit. It would mean that we would have to transition the way that we talk about football, and we would have to start looking more at that foundation. But hey, I know we're not ready to have that conversation, but clearly I wanted to bring it up. Let me know what you think in the comment section below about my craziness and all of my dependencies. If you believe that the quarterback, wide receiver, and cornerback are not the three highest dependent positions in football, because I believe that, but I'm very fascinated to see what other people have to say. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, I'll see you in my next video.